And we are officially live. Another episode of Shut Up and Invest. We got J Money in the house. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, what's going on, Kevin, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. But I'll tell you what, today is on you. You're leading the campaign today because we're starting with a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions in our DMs, and we're gonna jump off answering some of the questions right away. But the first one, which this is all on you, my friend, because I know you're starting to become the Bruce Lee of this concept and putting into practice of collateral substitution,
Oh
which
yeah,
could get complicated. So hold on to your seats because we're going to simplify it to the best of our ability. So why don't we break that down and tell us a little bit about how you're playing with that in your game?
definitely. Real quick, can you hear me, Kevin? Because your screen kind of froze, but am I still coming through fine?
I hear you perfect.
Okay, got it. I'm looking at you. You're just like frozen at the moment, so uh, that's probably just on my end. But substitution to collateral, right? So this is a term that we've talked about in the past. I've done it on a few deals. We get a lot of questions, but I get a lot of questions about that, right? So what's substitution to collateral? Okay, we'll kind of break it down real quick, and then we'll get into some more questions you guys might have. But all that means is that let's say seller A, Kevin's going to sell me a house, and he says, "Hey Jay, I'm going to sell you this house for $100,000, right? I want you to pay me per month for 15 years, and I don't want you to pay me off early, right? I don't want to get that check before the end of 15 years, 180 months, okay? I have sellers who actually do that. We're dealing with two sellers right now who actually said that. They want this to be residual income for their retirement. They don't want to get paid off, right? So what you can do is you can add a clause called substitution to collateral clause into that contract, okay? And what that means is, let's say I've been paying Kevin for 2 years, and then I want to flip that house and sell to somebody else. I can turn around and sell that house, right, to my end buyer, okay, but not pay Kevin off. I can then substitute my loan with Kevin onto another property for equal or more value, right? So that's kind of the whole gist of it is I can substitute collateral for that loan. Remember, the loan is a lien, right? The loan's on the property. The collateral is the house, okay? That loan he gave me, he wants that money to come in per month for 15 years, okay? The collateral can be exchanged in that loan, but we keep paying him those same terms.
Right. So let's put it in a real world example. I gave you $100,000.
Correct.
And we tied it up with property 123 ABC. You, 2 years down the road, got someone that really wants to pay you good money for that property 123 ABC. Our agreement on the mortgage note is a 10-year term, but we did put in the opportunity for collateral substitution, correct?
Correct, yes. So let's say at the end of 2 years, I owed you, let's say, the unpaid balance to Kevin, let's say it was $90,000, right? We'll just use that even number, okay? When I sell that 123 ABC Street to that new buyer, okay, what usually happens, right? If I would have sold that property, usually I would get a mortgage, discharge of mortgage. I would pay Kevin off for what I owe Kevin. I'd take whatever profit there was, and we'd be done, okay? When you have this clause in place, I'm not paying Kevin's mortgage off. I'm going to substitute that property that we had mortgage with a different one. So what happens, I get to use, let's say Kevin did that at 0%. Okay, let's say it's a 0% loan. I want to keep using that 0% loan fund. So if I can sell 2 or 3 homes underneath that loan with Kevin, I mean, that's crazy because you're doing 0%. So that's why we try to include that clause in any seller finance. So any owner finance deal we do where we have a seller who's going to sell it to us, we try to always include that substitution collateral clause in there because, again, we're getting somebody's at 0%, 2%, 3%, okay? If my buyer pays me off, I want to continue to have that loan, those funds available.
Now, in order to do this, you have to have the next property lined up to be able to close one right into the other and do a domino close.
You don't have to have that, no. So I can pay him off, okay? And it depends on the terms of the contract. Some people might say, hey, it must be. I have the one guy now who's like, yeah, I'll do it, but it must be at exact value or more. right? And it must be in a certain area. So, I can't take a house that I bought. This one's in northwest of Grand Rapids, right? I can't pay him off and then go do on a house, let's say in Miami, right? He wants to only be collateralized by a certain type of property in a certain type of area. Okay, but you don't have to have it one for one. So it could be, hey, we find that property in 2 months and then we collateralize it like that. Usually there's a time frame that says you must collateralize that loan within a certain amount of time. But again, that's all negotiable. That all depends on what you can negotiate.
Right. Okay. Good deal. Now, these terms are being written inside the note.
Correct. Yeah. So they're in the note. So our note, right? So we don't even talk about it inside of our purchase agreement. When we send our note over, or whatever we're gonna, yes, when we send our note over to the seller, it's in the note. So it's part of the note that is loaning on the property, right? So that's when the seller will look over the note. If they have an issue with it, it'll come up at that point.
Got it. Now, you mentioned a couple points, right? You have one guy that you're doing this with that essentially, without him realizing it, he's giving you loan guidelines, right? He's saying, hey, listen, I'm cool with this, but I don't want it in a completely different city. I want it at the same value. I want it, basically, they can kind of come up with their own underwriting terms that you and him come to an agreement with that's fair. That way, kind of what box you get to play in and that he's going to be comfortable doing, not putting him in a situation where he originally lent you money on a great deal that protects him in case, God forbid, anything goes wrong. But then you take that money and put it in a lot more riskier deal that's got, let's say, less equity in it, or it's in an area that he's not comfortable with because you went from B class to C minus class, like all those things are things that when you're negotiating this, you're discussing upfront before you make the deal happen.
Yeah, and so this guy, when we sent over our purchase agreement to him, when he came back with his basically counter on our owner finance offer, he wrote in there basically, look, if the note is paid off, right? He already kind of knew the concept, so he put in there it must be replaced with a property that fits this criteria, right? So that's what he did. A word of one of the rules is it almost always needs to be equal value, right? So let's say I have a house, right? The house that Kevin knew was $100,000. I'm not going to go substitute that loan on a house where the ARV is $35,000, right? Because then there's no value, there's no collateral protecting my seller. Okay. Now, what you could do is you could go get 3 or 4 houses that are $75,000 and put them all collateralized by that same loan, right? But you don't want to have, owing Kevin 100, and then you sell a house and substitute the collateral, and the house you put underneath the new loan is only worth $35,000. Okay, because then you have an issue.
Yeah, 100%. That protects both. People might be listening to this and they say, well, how do I even approach a seller when I'm negotiating seller financing on this concept without it getting too complicated and scaring them off?
Yeah, and so I think the easiest way is, right, to have it a part of your actual note, okay? Because what happens is when it goes time to close, you submit that note, that clause will be in there, right? So the best way is to have it be a part of their notes, and then if they have an issue with it, they'll bring it up. Again, most of these sellers, when they agree to a set term, right, they want to have it for that term, right? A lot of people don't want to pay that capital gains tax. So they say 7 years, right? They want to get those payments for 7 years. So they're not going to even throw any kind of questions at that clause in the note, right? That's how we do it. It's in all of our notes. Now, some sellers say, hey, I don't agree to that. We take it out, right? And some agree to it. They have no problem with it. Some want to actually kind of like control the terms of what kind of property we collateralize, right? But I'm saying if you have a note that you're using with your owner finance deals when you're buying them, that clause should be included in every single note.
So that's it. It's become part of your standard operating procedure.
It's just part of it. Yeah, every note we have, that's part of it, right? So when they get that note from us, when they review the note, it's in there, right? It's part of that note. If they have an issue with it, they'll bring it up. If not, it's just part of our procedure.
Got it. When you're actually looking into making the switch, that conversation, when you're giving them a heads up, hey, we're going to sell. What does it look like if you already have a property that you plan to move and substitute versus if you don't have a property, but you're, in the middle of trying to get another one to replace.
Got it. So basically, the way it goes with us is, again, when we let's say we sold off one of our deals. Okay, we got to replace it, right? Literally, what happens is they would get a note just saying, "Hey, we've replaced this property with this one." It would be done at the same time, right? So there's not even discussion being made because, again, these sellers really don't want you calling them. They just want to get their money per month, right? They don't really want to know too much about, hey, what's going on outside of this with this deal, with that deal. They just want to get their payment per month, right? So they would just get a letter saying we have, substituted the collateral for this property with this one right here. And that's why I'm saying make sure that the property you substitute with is a good property, right? Because you're not going to get any pushback as long as it's a good property. If they bought a house in that B-class market and you're putting a D-class property as the collateral, then they're going to probably say, hey, if you don't pay me, I'm stuck with this piece of property right now, right? So you want to do good by your sellers. Again, remember, our sellers who we're doing this with. So we bought 3 homes on a finance last year from a seller. That's the first time I actually did this clause, okay? That same seller came back to us last month and brought a new home to us and said, hey, I want to sell this one on seller financing, 15 years, boom, right? Because we've done good by him with the first time, he came back to us with another opportunity again. So always make sure you're doing good by your owner finance sellers who basically are becoming your private lenders.
Yeah, 100%. That's an interesting concept. It's part of the creative financing. It's part of what we've helped people. I know Jory's been implementing it within his business. I personally have not done a deal like that, but it makes sense. It makes sense as long as we're both on the same page and as long as I keep getting my money and it fits the same credit box and the same guidelines. I would just say, right, playing devil's advocate, if I was the lender or the seller financing, I just would kind of want to make sure, like you said, number one, the value of the property is obviously there. The condition of the property to make sure that it's not like a firehouse or something crazy. And if it is, I'm not saying I'm against that, but I want to know now what the full plan is to be able to, because God forbid if the payment stops, one thing is me taking over a property in a B-class area that needed minor work versus now we're moving it to a bigger property, but it's in a neighborhood that I'm not comfortable with and it's got, major damage. All that changes the game a little bit, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, for that one example where that guy kind of gave us some kind of guidelines, this is a property in the area with a lot of development going on, right? So he understands that he's selling it to us on owner financing terms, right? So it's a multi-unit, a lot of development near downtown. He understands that if we default on that loan, he gets a property back with some good value, So his main thing was like, look, I'm fine with this clause as long as it meets in these certain kind of areas where that same kind of development is going on, right? That was what he said. You might get a seller who doesn't care at all. Again, a lot of these sellers, when they do seller financing with you, they're just becoming the private lenders. So like my private lenders, right? My private lenders, not my hard money lenders, my private lenders don't really care what properties we're buying. They care about the return. That can be their seller. So one seller who, he doesn't care. As long as you just keep paying me for 15 years, I'm good, right? That's what he wants, So he's now hung up on what we substitute the property with, right? That's an easy one. They're not going to always be that easy. But as far as me on my side, I want to make sure, again, we have to have the responsibility to make sure that we do things right, because if you don't do things right and something goes wrong, that's how you have a huge hill of trouble, So I want to make sure, okay, yeah, this property was $75,000. I'm going to find something, one or a couple, where it can actually meet that value so that we're doing right by him.
Right. Yeah, basically what we were talking about last week. He's doing business with you. This is a relationship-based business, and that's where it tends to work out best for these type of substitutions of collateral.
Definitely, yeah. And I would say first thing, definitely, get with your attorney, right? Whatever note you're using on your owner finance deals, have your attorney add that clause into your deals, right? Make sure your states are fine with it. Add that clause in there and just make that part of your note, right? So like we have a note that we're tweaking it all the time. I mean, we're tweaking stuff on our note constantly, our note with our private lenders and our note with our homeowners. So I would just add that clause, right, into the note, talk to your attorney, make sure you understand it. And if it's too hard for you to explain, right, and they have a question, have your attorney explain it to them, right? Or or have them take it to their attorney, because I mean, again, we want them to know what we're doing. We're not trying to hide stuff in there and slide it past them. Okay, what we're saying is, you would be surprised how many sellers actually like that clause, because they don't want the money to end. they want to get that money for that 15 years. Or 30 years or whatever it is. I mean, there's a guy that we deal with who's a private lender. He does 13-year terms because in 13 years he'll be 100 years old. He said, "Hey, I want to have this money until I'm 100." So he does 13 years.
Playing devil's advocate, does that clause or the way you have it written in your note require me to substitute the collateral, or gives me the option? Because what if I do want to get paid off, a year later, 2 years later, circumstances have changed or whatever?
It gives you the option, right? So what it does is it gives me the option as the buyer, So when it's signed, you, the seller, can't say, "Oh, I want it back now," right? It gives me the option to exercise that clause, right? So if I want to exercise it, then I can do it. You can't say, "Hey, that clause is in default right now. You can't exercise it." I have the option to exercise it myself, or say, "Hey, I want to pay Kevin back."
Got it. Okay, good. And if they want to take it, cool. And if they don't, they tell you, and then you can consider reinvesting it or not.
Correct. Definitely. Yep.
Got it. All right. So, like I said, that is part of the creative financing world. We got Ken, who's got an actual question on that. So he's saying, "Hey guys, I'm reading The One Thing, and it's making me want to only focus on wholesaling first. Should I master wholesaling, then focus on creative financing? What are your guys' thoughts?" It's a very good debate.
That is. And that's actually a good book. I read that book a few months ago, The One Thing. That's a really, really good book.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kevin? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Oh, man, listen. It's like the preachers, right? They got to give the doctrine that fits the masses, but that doesn't mean that there's not somebody within the congregation that can do it differently and still have success, right? So what I mean by that is, you tell everybody pretty much like, try to live a clean, healthy life, don't drink, to avoid the people that can't handle it and end up becoming alcoholics. But I can have a drink and not become an alcoholic and be perfectly functional and just have it on a recreational once in a blue moon and it not affect my life negatively. So does the doctrine mean it's wrong? No. So very much I use that analogy to kind of frame out this answer. In a perfect world, you get really good at one thing. I completely agree with that. If you are not the type of person, and only you can answer this, that deal well with learning a couple different things in your tool belt to make you a better overall investor, you may want to consider one thing at a time. Because if you're just trying to figure out how to generate leads and generate opportunities, and that is a lot for you right now, the last thing you need to be doing is worrying about collateral substitution and all these things, because you haven't even been able to generate enough opportunities to implement creative financing right now. If you do have opportunities, but you're looking at yourself and you're saying, "I got 10 opportunities and I was only able to close one wholesale." What if learning these creative financing ninja moves, I would double it and get 2 deals, or even triple it and get 3 deals? Am I leaving money on the table from not having a hammer, a measuring tape, a screwdriver, different tools in your tool belt? That is the great debate, and only you can answer yourself. So it's kind of like, it depends where you are in your business, and it depends your type of personality. It depends if you're having opportunities and you're just potentially leaving money on the table. Then yeah, I would say creative financing may get you a couple more deals. But if you're not even able to get opportunities, then I would say focus on one thing, and that's start getting good at the marketing side of things, to be able to create opportunities to then come back and learn creative financing and focus on that to add it to your tool belt. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tough question because I read that book, and that book, it clearly tries to make you focus on one thing, right? And so for me, I kind of take it. You can kind of take it different ways, right? I try to focus on real estate, right? That's the one thing. It's like real estate, right? But I want to know how to do everything I can in real estate because that's, you only can benefit from real estate to the fullest by being diverse in real estate, right? I'm not very diversified as far as investors, but I'm in real estate. I'm diversified in real estate, My thought is, key point you said about marketing, right? Yes, master how to market, how to find deals before anything else, okay? And we always say wholesale marketing is the best marketing that's out there, right? If you can learn how to find wholesale deals or how to find wholesale terms, okay, and master that, then you'll be successful in real estate, So I would say that you want to master that first. But then when you master that, you definitely want to be able to take down every deal that you can, okay? And so if creative financing is a hiccup for you, then that's where you partner with somebody like me or Kevin, or you find someone else you partner with, right? You don't want to throw those deals away, maybe learn how to say, okay, this deal doesn't work for a wholesale deal, or it does work for a wholesale deal, but I know I can do something creative with it and create some cash flow. I don't know how to do it, but maybe, I'll call Jory or Kevin. They can help me do it, right? And that's when you then partner with people who know what you're doing. So definitely master the art of wholesale marketing, but you definitely want to learn creative financing, man. I can't stress enough how creative financing here in the future is going to be so important to investors, right? Those who don't know it, truly feel like they're going to be left behind. So you definitely either want to learn that after you master the wholesale game or partner with somebody who does know it.
100%. And I will say, just to finalize that point, that the people that we work with the most, side by side, the biggest challenge that I do see is they didn't look at the opportunity the right way and didn't realize that the objection that they received doesn't necessarily mean that there's another option that you can't do. You know what I mean? So a lot of the wholesalers and realtors are kind of just stuck on that one trick. And then in the conversation, they don't realize that if the person's asking for more money and it doesn't fit, let's say that 70% rule, right? That so many people are holding on to, like, no, well, it's worth 250 and they wanted 220, like there's not enough spread there because the property needs work. And game over, that's not a deal. I'm off to the next. Where we've taken people and we've able to show them, well, why don't we turn that into a retail listing? Don't walk away from it. That's one option. Why didn't you ask if they're able to sell it on terms and try to do a creative financing deal or a sub-2 deal? Oh, I didn't even think about that. How does that work or whatnot? So you can even pay extra on a deal, more than the competition would, if the terms make sense and you can get that deal to cash flow. Then what do you care if you're paying extra for it? It's still cash flowing, and you can hold on that deal as a cash flow or turn around and get someone to pay you a premium because they like the cash flow that you were able to create there.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why, if you're going to master if you're going to say, what should I master? Wholesale and creative financing? I'm going to say master creative financing all day long, right? But if you don't know how to market, and like me and Kevin stress how learning how to market for wholesale deals, right, is the foundation of our real estate companies, right? So learn how to market first and then learn how to do creative financing. And if it's too much for you, then that's when you have someone on speed dial. Hey, any kind of deal like this, they're on speed dial, right? That's where you call, you send us a JV link and we look at the deal for you, right? Because that's the truth. You're going to throw away more deals that make sense if you don't know how to do creative financing methods on them.
Yeah. Interesting perspective. Thanks, guys. All right. I'm glad we were able to help you out there, Ken. Jay, what kind of deals you got on the table right now?
Man, I got some really good deals. Like I said, I got the one guy who did the substitution collateral. We got another deal with him on a 2-unit property. We were able to get this deal for $260. We got to put 50,000 down, and then he's doing 3% interest rate, right? So 3% interest rate, 15-year term. Owner finance deal on a duplex in one of the hottest parts of a area in Michigan. Also, we just got a deal I'm really excited about. So we just locked up a deal that we'll talk about some more, because this is one of those deals that's going to be like a development deal where we got a 5-acre parcel in a small town in Western Michigan, and this 5-acre parcel has 10 homes in it right now. So these would be considered tiny homes, right? About 500, 600 square foot homes. Some are 2 bedrooms, some are 1 bedrooms. I was actually in Michigan last week and got to walk that property and look it over. And it has room to add 4 more. Okay, so this is one of those things where you can add. We have room to add 4 more, and I'm actually looking into possibly doing the container home model to add the 4 homes onto this structure, this parcel. So we would actually have 14 homes. So looking at it, it's one of those value add development deals where, after you add the 4 homes, you put the money to that, you can definitely double the income that's coming in. So that's the deal that I'm really excited about right now that we're looking into. And then we're still locking up our $25,000 to $35,000 deals that we're selling as is on land contract. It's funny, Kev, we just had a meeting this morning, me and my partner, going over our P&L. And our first quarter P&L, I said this in a comment in our Facebook group, our first quarter P&L looks horrible, right? Like if you look at the NOI, it looks bad strictly because we buy so many homes in the first quarter, strictly to sell them on land contract when tax season comes around, right? So we have a large amount of inventory right now. That's actually, we sold like 4 or 5 of them just this month in April so far, these first 2 weeks. That's coming off the books, but if you look at the P&L for just the first few months, it's like, man, you guys did bad. But no, we had a plan behind it. We're buying because we know, come April, come May, this is that whole knowing your market, right? If you're up north where it's cold at, there's not many buyers until about the end of March, April, right? They're just not out looking for buyers. You have the holidays, you have the winter where people from the north come down south. They're all in Florida, right? Florida is so different. Florida gets a ton of deals sold in January, February, March, right? Compared to the north where you get a lot less real estate sold, but we actually know the seasons in our market. So we buy a lot in those months because we want to have that inventory for right now. Right now I have a list of buyers that need homes. We don't have enough inventory for them.
Yeah, I've been slammed down here in
Yeah.
Florida. It's crazy. The modular homes, I want to know more about that, man. Maybe we should get somebody on the show to kind of break that down, because that's becoming super popular in the space, especially for vacation home rentals and people exactly like that have the extra space and are looking to add units, and they want to avoid a lot of the traditional ways of doing it.
Yeah, I met with a girl who's from San Juan that's doing container homes, right? She's doing them throughout Puerto Rico. She's doing some of Virgin Islands. She's actually doing one. She has a proposal for a plan in Birmingham, Alabama. And I met with her about these ones in Michigan, also about a home that I'm doing for myself here in Puerto Rico. And she will come on the show too. I talked to her. That was on Monday. So, she's going to let me know some days she come on the show. She has a very, very, good story. She's an architect, did her master's in Africa. She learned about container homes and sustainable energy when she was in Africa, and now she's pushing container homes, solar, all like, we talked about having a biofield instead of a septic, and the pluses, the minuses about that. There's a lot of cool stuff that I think, not just that it's cost worthy, right? And there's a whole other aspect about the affordable housing crisis we have going on, across the world right now, where container homes and modular homes become a very, attractive asset. But also as an investor, you gotta understand there's tax credits, right? And know who's in office right now. Democrats give a lot of tax credits for affordable housing and for energy and green homes, right? Know who's in office right now, and there's tax credits out there for building these homes, using containers, which are, renewable energy, and using solar, right? So she's gonna come on, hopefully, Kevin, even in the next 2 weeks. I'll get the exact date from her probably today.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've definitely wanted to look more into. So that would be a good guest. That's what's up. I'm here picking up Airbnbs like crazy this year. That's what I've been focusing on. I'm working on a deal right now that's 2 homes side by side. Mother and daughter bought each home. They knocked down the fence and they combined the backyard essentially for a courtyard. And they turned this essentially into a little boutique hotel where it's got 7 total units right next to downtown Fort Lauderdale. riverfront, like 10 minutes from the port. So it's a perfect short-term rental for people once the cruises start, that they're in just for the day. They need a place to crash to then jump on the cruise the next day, and the same thing when they come back to be able to catch a flight. So they're on different folio numbers. So we're essentially buying both houses, but the property's laid out and even contained with the fence and everything, branded, um, like a little boutique hotel. So I'm literally walking into a turnkey business because I'm walking in and I negotiated keeping the phone number because she has history of
Okay.
clientele. She has people that when they come in for the boat show or when there's Tortuga Festival, like they rent the whole place out. So that clientele makes sense. It's a return on investment for me to keep the website, keep all the profiles. She has it on Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb. So we're, and part of the contract, we're getting the furniture, we're getting everything that's on the property, plus the business assets, which is the phone number, the website, and all the vacation rentals as part of the package deal. So that's what, looking at things from a creative standpoint and from a potential of a business, not just, oh, let me buy a property and rent it, does for you. And we're looking at, on average, let's say those two houses, if I was just going to do buy and hold regular rent, maybe I'll get 3,000, 3,500 max, on these properties at running them the way she's running them and keeping them going. We're talking about 12,000 on low season, 10 to 12,000 low season, and 16 to 18,000 high season. Like,
Nice.
it's a huge difference.
Hey, I'm really big on Airbnbs. Just the future of Airbnb. I mean, I'm staying in an Airbnb right now. I've literally been staying in Airbnbs since November in Puerto Rico. I was in Michigan, staying in two different Airbnbs. I mean, I didn't even look at hotels anymore, right? So Airbnb, is going to be, there's going to be people who have Airbnb who have what we used to look at Hilton and Marriott and Sheraton. I really think that, and also with the world opening back up. I was in the airport, Kevin. I had to fly from Michigan to Fort Lauderdale Airport, and I was there for like a few hours before I came to San Juan. I have never seen a Fort Lauderdale Airport this busy before in my life, right? And I flew during COVID. I flew a bunch of times when it was empty, and the airport was packed, like at a rate that I've never seen before in my life. So people are saying the Roaring '20s are coming back in 2021, right? And I believe it because there's a build up demand. Definitely for travel. You talk about the cruise industry. That's not even back yet, right? When the cruise industry does come back, I think people will rush to the cruise industry. And there's going to be places. I mean, Florida is definitely one where Airbnbs are going to blow up. They're already blowing up. There are people looking to buy them up, right? I read an article today about hedge funds, right? Man, you have known this. Hedge funds have been buying real estate for rentals since the great financial crisis, right? It's like 2010. They've been buying a real estate, single family real estate for the most part, right? And they're putting them in REITs, right? So a REIT used to consist of commercial properties, right, Kevin? Like your office space, your large, 100 plus units. Now most of these REITs are filled with single family units that are turning to rentals, right? They are predicting that America will be mostly rentals at some point, and the big money is getting in the game, buying this stuff up. I mean, I just sold two properties in Florida and St. Pete. They were both sold to hedge funds. So they're buying those and doing Airbnbs with them. Airbnb is getting a lot of money behind it as far as, big time institutions are backing investors to create companies just to do Airbnbs, so the future of Airbnb is huge. I mean, I think it's just a beautiful future.
Yeah. And the reality here is we're just figuring out ways to increase our cash on cash return, increase our ROI. I'll put a virtual assist to basically become the concierge, the property manager, and connect the logistics. I mean, that person won't even live probably in the United States. And we'll do a show on that. That'll probably be a good way to break
Definitely.
down the business model for people to know. But this is kind of, the point of today's show, and we'll wrap up with this. there's creative financing, there's creative real estate investing, there's more ways to max out deals. I mean, we had Jared on here a few weeks ago, and he's doing, room by room rentals, and he was able to maximize the return on investment on that property big time. So, and guys, this is all during the pandemic. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what we need to understand, that pivoting, looking at different investment strategies, different vehicles to be able to keep it going is the name of the game. So to go back to Ken's original question of the one thing, you definitely want to start off mastering and focusing one thing. Um, I do know a couple people that kill it in just wholesaling, or just, being a listing agent, or just being a landlord, and they got, their 20 properties, and they're fine with it, and that's their business model. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you're happy with your lifestyle, you're happy with your return on investment, you're happy with your business model, you have a plan for when, no matter what, you're covered, then there's nothing wrong with that. We're just here introducing more concepts, more ideas, and for the people that are looking to, grow, scale, try different things, that's what we try to do every week here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's been a better time in the world to be in, real estate right now. I mean, with the technology and the way it is, you can disrupt the system in so many different ways, and if you just can think outside the box, there's so many endless opportunities for real estate right now. I mean, there really are, so it's definitely a great time, man. And creative financing is going to definitely allow you. I mean, like we said, during the pandemic, Kevin knows. I mean, Kevin's traditional side of financing kind of froze up a little bit, right? But the creative financing was still going. We were doing deals, during the pandemic creatively, because we weren't tied to any kind of, requirements besides our own, So that's why creative financing is so important. And if you feel like you can't do it, then partner, man. I mean, we partner in everything. Don't be afraid to partner, right? A piece of 5 things is better than a whole of one. So go out there and partner. Go out and find somebody who knows what they're doing. Again, guys, we're buying deals. We're looking at deals every single day. So send us your deals. You want us to partner on them. If you want to wholesale them to us, then we'll pay you a fee for them. But don't be afraid to ask and send them our way.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest takeaway, no matter what strategy or what concept, where you're doing substitutive collateral, whether you're doing creative financing, whether you're doing short-term rentals, no matter how you're acquiring properties, partner, focus on your one thing, get really good, be that person on that team, and then find the people that you can add to your team that are really good at the other things, and then don't let anything go. Just know how to see them and hand them off.
Definitely. Yep. Get good at that. Get good at knowing what you do. And if the stuff that you don't do, partner with somebody else and let them take care of it. That's definitely the key, Kevin. Good point.
100%. All right, my brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys coming through. And as always,
shop and invest.